I hope we're all doing well. Good morning. So without taking much of our time, I think that we can proceed with the people joining us or with the people present now. Once again, good morning to our guests. My name is Sharon Madaki. I work with Social Capital, and I'll be anchoring the process of the webinar today. You could say hi in the chat box so that I know that I have my audience with me. Hi Sunday, hi Chizoba, hi Olumide, Priye, good morning to you. Thank you everybody. Hi Sunday. It's a pleasure to have all of us on this platform this morning. And we'll just begin with a few things on our agenda. And we'll begin by, I'll begin with an introduction to what the webinar is all about. And we'll meet our speakers. I'll discuss a few housekeeping rules, and we'll encourage our guests or participants to take a quick survey on Mentimeter. Then we proceed into the discussion itself, and we have our floor open for the question and answer sessions. And after that, we'll round off the program for today. The program, we hope that this program will be a very interesting one, and it will provide information and insights as to the development space. Hi, Tai, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So, as we proceed to our introduction, I would say welcome again to the Careers in International Development, Discovering Your Path to Impact. We are delighted to have you to join us today as we explore exciting and rewarding world of international development. So whether you're a recent graduate, you're a seasoned professional looking to change your career or make a career transition, or you're somebody simply just passionate about making a positive impact on the world, this webinar is designed to provide you with valuable insights and guidance on how to thrive in the international development space. So we are qualifying the development space to mean international development. That we could be using the words interchangeably: development space, international development. So as some of you may know, international development encompasses vast array of efforts and that is aimed at improving the lives of people around the globe. So whether it involves implementing, whether it involves sustainable development projects, whether it involves providing humanitarian assistance in crisis regions, or advocacy for policy changes that address global challenges. So general international development professionals play crucial role in shaping the future for everyone around. So during this webinar, the intention is to delve into various aspects of career in international development. We will explore the diverse range of career paths available, including working with NGOs, international institutions, working with NGOs, international institutions, and Sorry, my screen is freezing. Can you still hear me? Okay, I think I'm back now. All right. So government agency, consulting firms. So we'll have a chance to hear from our experienced professionals who have made significant contributions to the field, and they've gained valuable insights in their journey, and they're going to share those insights with us, what their challenges were, what their triumphs were, and all of that. So additionally, we're also going to be discussing the skills and qualifications that are highly sought after in the international development sector, as well as the competencies needed to excel in this field. And as I said during the introduction of the agenda, we'll also address questions, or we'll open the floor to questions that are related to the relevant education required for being part of the international development space, the trainings, internship, networking opportunities that can help you as our audience break into the international development space. So for those people that maybe have gotten into the door, how to advance. So quickly about social capital. So we are a social impact strategy organization based in Abuja. We are involved in innovation, financing, and research. We partner with public, private, and social sector organizations to improve lives, empower communities, and transform systems in Africa. So in a nutshell, what I have just said, what we do in social capital is that we harness the power of philanthropy and private sector strategies to help people lift themselves out of poverty. So having established that, we will now proceed to our speakers. So we are going to be having two speakers today who have vast experience in the development space for over 10 years, and they will be sharing with us so much insight. Our first speaker will be Dr. Oluchi Basi. She's the seasoned public health specialist and management consultant with over 10 years experience in the health and development sector. She possesses strong stakeholder management skills alongside coordination, design, strategy, public health research, data analysis skills, mostly gained from working with and providing technical assistance to government organizations, both locally and international, and working with international partners at both the regional and national level. She has gleaned geographical work experience from the UK, from other African regions, and across all 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. And she's currently supporting the COVID-19 vaccination and outbreak response as a consultant technical officer. She's also doing that in coordination with the World Health Organization African Regional Office in Brazzaville, Congo. She loves to simply be identified as a wife to one man, a mother of an amazing 9-year-old boy, and an intentional child of God. Welcome, Oluchi, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right. Our second speaker is Dr. Victor Igaru. Dr. Victor is a global development expert with vast experience in management and development consulting, program management, leadership, and research. He has managed hundreds of people across the world, cross-cutting cultural and generational dynamics. He's a business and personal development coach, as well as a public speaker. He has his expertise spanned around strategy, operational teams, including strategic planning, policy and advocacy, innovation and management, implementation research, program management. The list goes on, both in the private and public sector, as well as the international scene. He's also a speaker, trainer, venture philanthropy advisor. He's a social enterprise builder, impact investor. I mean, the list goes on. Welcome, Victor, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very delighted to be here. Good morning.
Okay, so I think having introduced the speakers, we'll be talking about our housekeeping rules. Please mute your mic when you're not speaking, so we will not have sound interference, and to avoid distraction. And should you require to speak or to ask a question during the question and answer session, please raise your hand. And you can also, some of us still would prefer to write rather than speak. So for those that would prefer to write rather than speak, please drop your questions in the question and answer box, and we will try and attend to it within the period of time that we have. And there will be a link that will be shared for the attendance. So kindly do us the honors of completing the attendance sheet. So at this point, we want to proceed to the survey. So the idea behind this survey is to find out generally what our audience knowledge about the international development space will be. And we'll just give about 5 minutes, I guess, for us to take our time and answer the questions. I think there are about 5 of them. 2 are open-ended and the others have options that we can give. So I'll just give about 5 minutes. So about 11:25, we'll proceed to the main program for today. So can we please share the link for the questions? Okay, so it's been shared. The link for the question has been shared in the chat box. So in a short sentence, okay, in one word, why are you interested in the development sector? That's one of the questions. In a short sentence, okay, so okay, we are waiting for answer for, in one word, why are you interested in the development sector? Can you let us know in the chat box if you are finding any difficulty to answer so we can easily address it? Improvement, there's money. Somebody says improvement, there's money. And we are looking for money. Value, impact, yes. What was in the development sector actually? Somebody says passion in the chat box. Yes. Interesting. Interesting. So this webinar is for you. So what specific skill or qualification do you think is most essential for a successful career in international development? That's our next question. So we have so we have cross-cultural competence, we have problem solving and analytical skills, we have project management, research and data analysis, we have communication and collaboration, adaptability, policy knowledge, and the list goes on. I see a lot of people picking project management, yes. Or problem solving, okay, and analytical skills, yes. So which career paths within the development sector interests you the most? Oh, wow, okay. I don't see anybody taking program management. Interesting, monitoring and evaluation. Which development sector do you think needs the most attention? Poverty and education. I see healthcare, I see environmental sustainability. Interesting opinions here. I don't see gender equality. All right, thank you very much for those of us that participated in this brief survey. So the idea is just to have a feel of what our audience know, the knowledge of our audience as to the international development space. And it's quite interesting that there's the level of knowledge is quite high, and so we will not be speaking technically to novices, and that's good. That's good. So it means that they understand. They will be understanding certain terminologies that will be used during this discussion. So Without wasting so much time, we'll proceed to the discussion fully, and I will have Dr. Oluchi speak first. She will be my first guest. And my question to Dr. Oluchi is, what do development professionals really do?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, good morning, everyone, once again. It's such a pleasure to be here. I think I have been smiling since I have been seeing your responses, particularly the first response that said money in capital letters. I actually had a good laugh. So thank you to the team at Social Capital organization for this opportunity, the team and management, and thank you to everyone who have actually joined us. So yes, to the question, who are development partners and what do they actually do? I think the first thing I would like to mention is that the development work it spans a wide array of sectors. It's not just dedicated to health, it's education, it's different sectors, it's environment, it's you know, social work and a whole lot of that. So I would like to first disabuse our mind that development work is just about healthcare. It's not just about healthcare, it's not just about public health. But interestingly, for myself as a professional, I have the privilege of working within the development sector for health, but it's a whole lot of that. So to that end, development professionals are people who work across a diverse set of thematic sectors, and their major aim is that they set out to create change, whether by area of solving health problems, social problems, or, you know, generally global challenges that we tend to face. So it's that that professional who is set out to create change, to solve problems, to, you know, make sure that things are maybe at a better equitable place or better social conditions, you know, that professional that is just trying to make a positive difference in people's life in their chosen sector. Another thing about development professionals is that they are people who work with people. For some of us, there are, you know, professions that you can be working in and maybe all you need to do is look at your laptop or maybe work with money or something like that. But for development professionals, they are definitely people who work with people. Because if you are creating change, if you are solving problems, somehow at the heart of those, you know, social problems, health problems, or global problems are people at the center of it, societies at the center of it. So they work with people, making sure that they are looking into the actions, the inactions, you know, the practices of policies that are, you know, surrounding these people, and creating linkages that ensure there is positive difference. Now, I think I've touched about who they are and what they do somehow, but also just to know that they work in healthcare, they work in poverty alleviation, they work in inequality, they work in climate change, they work in natural disaster, they work in environmental issues and a whole lot of things. And you would find them in local and international NGOs. I know Sharon has told us that our focus is on international development. I would just want to add that even if you are working locally in your community, you are adding up to international development. So don't undermine the local work that you are doing within your small community. But you would find that these development professionals are people that work in local NGOs, non-governmental NGOs, international agencies, multilaterals, consulting. There are development professionals also in consulting, humanitarian work, philanthropy, and of course in research and academia. So I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you for your response and for that clarification on that. I'll be asking Dr. Victor my next question now, and we often hear that development professionals are usually very intelligent, they work very long hours, they travel a lot, especially to risk-prone areas. How true is this and why is it so?
Yes, so thank you so much again for the opportunity to be part of this webinar. So just like you did mention, the development work requires a lot of community engagement. Part of the reason that is so is because a lot of places that seem to have or that we call marginalized are not really easy to reach. So you need to make extra efforts to reach out to those marginalized communities and ensure that just the way people in the urban or peri-urban settings have access to some of the critical services that is being provided, others in rural and hard to reach communities can also have, access to these services. And so this sometimes requires that you take risks, go to communities that you might not be comfortable with, adopt certain lifestyles that may not be entirely comfortable. You might have to leave the comfort of your ACs and your couches and your nice offices to be under the sun and in the rain. Sometimes you are required to even learn new cultures or adapt to new cultures, and talk to people. I think I like the point that Dr. Oluchi raised about working with people. The entire development field is all about people, improving the lives of people, working with people, working through people. So it's really important to know that in this field, you have to be a people-centered person. The other thing that is worth knowing is that the development space is packed with a lot of research, right? Because we constantly want to improve on the last intervention or the last initiative. There is a lot of focus on research. And research sometimes requires that you make extra efforts to read, to learn, to engage with what has worked in the past, to talk to people that have been there before you, to look at case studies. So development professionals at the minimum are required to be people that love to read. I know this might be scary because some people say, "Oh, I don't like to read," or "I don't like." Since I left school, I said I will not go back to read. Yes, I understand, but this reading is not necessarily because you want to pass an exam, but reading to know, reading to learn, because you don't have the time to experiment with things that will fail. Of course, that doesn't mean that you cannot be innovative. But if something has worked before, just find it, read about it, and incorporate it into whatever program and initiative that you are required to implement or support on the field. So you need to read. Then lastly, it's also important that as development professionals, you must have an open mind. You cannot be closed-minded and be an effective professional. Reasons being that you might experience things that will challenge you, the very foundation of what you have always believed in. You might see things that will challenge your values. You see things that will sometimes question even your social and religious stance. So you need to have an open mind because people are at different places in their lives. Different communities are at different places. It will shock you that in a place like Nigeria, or in a place not very far from, say, the capital city, there are still people that live Aboriginal lifestyles. They still walk around the communities without clothes. There are people that still drink mud water as we speak. There are people that eat raw animal. They just kill the animal and just put it over fire and they eat it with the blood and everything. So when you find yourself in those communities, it's not for you to isolate yourself and say, "No, I'm different from them." This is not time for long nails and stilettos. It is time to get down and sort of understand things from the perspective of the people so that you are better positioned to help them solve their problems. So those are some of the key things that the key attributes that development professionals should have. But in summary, you must have an open mind. You must have a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. That's the only way you survive in this environment.
All right, thank you, Dr. Victor. I note that you mentioned something around, or you talked about research, being good at research in the development space, of as research as being a core. Is the development space exclusive, because research requires some level of intelligence? And so my question is the development space exclusive for the ultra smart or academically intelligent person, or what kinds of intelligence or extra skills do people who are interested to get into the development space required, or those people already in the development space, what level of intelligence have they had to harness?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I get asked that question all the time. There is a perception that if you are in the international development space, you must be very smart, you must be very intelligent. Aren't we all intelligent? What is intelligence in the first place? It's the ability to, it's the ability to creatively find a solution out of whatever problem that you have. So whether it's a problem in your personal life, your problem in the house, and the problem in anywhere you find yourself, once you can find your way around any problem, you are intelligent. I say that to say that I make that remark to say that Nigerians generally are intelligent. But let's bring it home, right? Let's talk about intelligence within the context of international development space. Yes, indeed. There's a lot of reading sometimes, there's a lot of writing, there's a lot of engagement, and you can't engage blindly, so you have to read. Yeah, so all of these things happen, but it also depends on the scope of work. Within the development space, you have people that are technically oriented. You have human resource people, you have finance people, you have operations, you have logistics people. You have people that all they do is just to make sure that all the logistics, the vehicles that you need to use to go to the fields, all your travel arrangements are properly made. And there are people that all they do is to ensure that they engage with government, and the government is ready to, receive you and engage with the project. There are people that all they do is to provide security, to ensure that as you are going to help people, you are not endangering your life. So you have all kinds of practices within the development space. But one fundamental attribute that is crossing for any kind of practice is that agility to respond to problems when you find them. It's not allowed. It is, in fact, I tell my team that you shoot first and ask questions later. When you see a problem, you solve it, then you come and explain how you solve the problem. So long as you are solving those problems within the confines of the ethics and within the provision, applying by whatever authority under which you are operating, whether your organization or the government policy or whatever. But the most important thing is that bureaucracy is not, if you're in development, you have to learn how not to be bureaucratic, because every life counts. Every second somebody is dying. Every minute that you delay, somebody's life is at stake. Every time that you get bureaucratic and you're not responding as you need to respond, a community is at jeopardy. So you cannot afford to be redundant. So agility is one of the key attributes. So if I break agility, or the intelligence that is required for agility, if I break it further, I would say there are maybe three major types of intelligence that allows you to respond with the right kind of agility. One is that you need technical intelligence. So based on your particular area of work, whether you are a researcher or whether you are a logistics and admin person, whether you are a human resource person, whether you are a technical person. What I mean technical is that you are on the field actually providing services. If you're in the healthcare space, you're actually, attending to patients or attending to clients. If you are in the education space, you're actually providing an education solution. If you are in the economic empowerment space, you're actually helping women or those marginalized communities to become financially inclusive and all of that. You are a technical person, so you need intelligence that is relevant for your technical area. So for human resource, you need to be ready to be the best human resource. For logistics, be ready to be the best logistics person. For a technical person, ready to be the best, right? So you need technical intelligence, right? The second kind of intelligence you need is you need cultural intelligence. And oftentimes you never talk about cultural intelligence. You just throw people out there, or you just think that, oh, I'm in development, I just want to go out there. No. For example, if you're going to a certain part of this country and you're a woman or you're a lady, there's a way that you dress, not because they are forcing you to, but because you want to appeal to the community that you are part of them. You want to appeal to the stakeholders that you are part of them. So being culturally intelligent requires that you dress in a certain way. There are places that you also go to, and being culturally intelligent says that when they offer you food, don't reject it, even if you don't want to eat it. Just show and take it, and find a way of dealing with it later. So that's also part of being culturally intelligent. Being culturally intelligent, says that you get to some places, and when you're talking to a traditional leader, right, you genuflect, or you squat, or you prostrate. I've been to places where I'm greeting the traditional leader, and I'm trying to prostrate, like the Southwest people do. And everybody around them were squatting. So I quickly had to start squatting with them. For them, the squatting is the highest form of respect. So even if you lie on the floor and roll on the floor or roll in the mud, it doesn't make any difference to them. So you need to have cultural intelligence, right? That's the second kind of intelligence that you are required to have. Then the third kind of intelligence that you are required to have is emotional intelligence. You cannot have emotional intelligence. You cannot solve people's problems if you don't have emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence requires that you know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it in a way that delivers the value that you expect, and you do not put either yourself or the other person at risk. So emotionally intelligent means that you know what to say at the right time, you know how to say at the right time. Emotional intelligence means that you know what to listen to and what not to listen to. So there are people that say things and they actually saying things without saying things. So you need to also understand all of that. Emotional intelligence also requires that you are able to predict, what could happen, say 2 or 3 steps ahead, so that you can mitigate it, or so that you can prepare adequately for it. So those are the 3 kinds of intelligence. In my opinion, of course, there are many other types of intelligence, but these 3 types of intelligence, if you are able to harness it, you will be able to build the kind of agility that you require to operate in whatever field in development. I think let me stop there so that I can allow more questions.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Victor. That was quite enlightening and all-encompassing. So I'm coming back to Dr. Oluchi. During the course of my introduction, the course of talking about your answering your first question, you made a comment about the development space cutting across several fields, and maybe you may want to throw more light on the different fields in the international development space, because I believe that some of our guests will want to know where, or want to identify what field they will most fit in, and maybe which field they have a passion about, or maybe for those that are doing a career shift, they probably have experience in certain areas. I would want to find out if there are spaces within the international development arena where they can transfer their experience to. So what are the core fields generally in international development that you may want to talk about?
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. And thank you, Dr. Victor, for that very extensive answer earlier on. As a matter of fact, some of the things that Dr. Victor had earlier said, would sort of reflect in this question. And I'm glad we are coming back to this question. I cannot emphasize enough how development work is not only for doctors. Development work is not only in healthcare. There is development work in environment, in education, in agri, in technology, in business and economics and all that. So what that means is that if you are a doctor, if you are a community worker, if you are a lawyer, if you are an economist, if you're even a politician, if you are a statistician, if you are a journalist, if you are a writer, you know, whatever it is that you are, you can actually find your space. If you're a HR officer, if you're a security guard, in fact, when Dr. Victor was talking, I was reminded of how I had my life saved in River State many years back. I think that was 2015 or thereabout. We went in to a healthcare facility and we had an issue where some of the community boys came to attack us and actually maybe hold us hostage. It took the understanding, the emotional intelligence and the technical expertise of our driver who was, you know, driving the car that saved our lives. And maybe I wouldn't even have been here by now. So whatever you are or who you are, you can actually find your place in the development work, depending on which core field you then want to focus on. Now, speaking about the fields, number one field I would like to, you know, talk about is program planning or program implementation or program design. At the heart of what development professionals do, depending on what their goal is or their sector is that they want to create change. They want to deliver solutions to the communities or the locations or the target audience that they are working with. Now, for you to deliver whatever solution, it needs to come in a package. And whatever package that you are bringing for them, if it is immunization, if it is giving them money or helping them learn a trade, or you are helping them make sure that they don't cut down trees so that they are not prone to natural disasters, or whatever it is you have come to do for them, give them good water, give them light, it is a package. And to deliver that package to them is the heart of what program planning, implementation and program design is. It then means that in the center of that is you would have to look into community engagement, creating awareness, creating, you know, the availability for the supply of the package you have brought for them, making sure that the system to deliver this package or whatever program or whatever idea that you are bringing to them, that there are systems to make that thrive. The interaction of all of that community engagement, demand creation, awareness, supply, whatever it is you are doing is at the center of program planning, program design, and implementation. Another field within the development sector, and to put out there that these things I'm mentioning, they are cross-cutting, regardless of whichever sector that you want to place it in. Even though maybe when you come into some specific sectors, then you might need to introduce some specifications, but these are generally the kinds of fields that you might find yourself working within these sectors to do development work. So another thing would be maybe policy, practice advisory, or whatever you might want to define it as. But in policy, in the policy field for development work, it is you engaging with the people, targeting their practices and actions and helping them come up with possibly guidelines. I'm careful to not use the word law, because like Dr. Victor earlier said, when we do this work, you don't come to impose on people. You need to be sensitive on their own way of life. And even if you have a better idea to improve their way of life, you have to come from a place of negotiation and interactions. And you do that by targeting their practices, their policies, and, you know, providing some level of advice. Another part is resource mobilization. A lot of the development work that is done is not done without resources. Resources is a big deal. And that's why donors are a big part of development work, because they are the people who bring the money. It might be public donors, it might be private donors, it might even be individual donors, but whatever they are, they bring the resources, the financing for targeting some of these problems. Because the truth of the matter is a lot of the work we do in development work are social work, and it takes someone who is interested and someone someone who is ready to give you money, and then you take the money that you have to then see how you can improve the work or the goal that you want to improve. So resource mobilization and resource management is a big part of it. It then means that, you know, budgeting, the way the money is given out, is disbursed and utilized, is also a core field that needs to be looked into. Another part, and maybe I should have started with this part, is advocacy. Any development work you do, advocacy is a huge part, because what is advocacy? Is making a case for something that you think it's a better idea or a better way of life. When you go to give menstrual cups to young women in schools, or when you go to do development work in education, you come with making a case for something, bringing that package together. I'm not careful to call advocacy activism in development work, because for me, activism is slightly confrontational, and it's not like it doesn't have its place in the problems we solve for the world. But within the development sector, I would like to think that more of what happens is advocacy, negotiation, making a case for a certain ideology that you have brought. And then, of course, there is research and knowledge management. Dr. Victor earlier talked about how it's important for us within the development sector as a field to have research ongoing. It is continuous, it is never ending, because it's our way of checking in with our results, checking in with what we are doing, collecting data, so that we are sure that whatever actions we are putting in are good enough. If not good enough, we make changes. If good enough, we make it scale. What we mean by scale is that we make it to go to different levels. So research and knowledge management is very important. And inside research and knowledge management, we also have a bit of monitoring, evaluation, and all of that. Also, another field in development sector is information technology. As a matter of fact, I think for those of us working in the development field in this age and time, we are lucky, because we have innovation, we have information technology at our fingertips to help us to continually innovate in the kind of packages, the kind of solutions, or the kind of recommendations that we are, you know, making for our audience or the stakeholders that we are working with. I think I will just stop here, but in a nutshell, there are core fields across the sectors: health, business, education, and all of that. And these fields are some of the ones that I've highlighted. Maybe if we have, as the time goes on, if we have more, I'm happy to speak more to that. Over.
All right, thank you, Dr. Oluchi, for being so expansive as to the different areas. I hope it's helpful and it has provided a lot of insight to our guests. So as a follow-on question, we've talked so much about the different areas, some skills that we need to be a part of the development sector, and what the development space, what the job in the development space entails. There are times where you hear people say, to get into the development sector, you have to know somebody that knows somebody. It's kind of like a close cabal, permits me to use that word. So I want to ask you, as a follow-on, how can those considering to enter the development space, or for those seeking to change or switch careers, how do they ensure that they're adequately primed so that when they get into the door, they're able to stay and advance, or even getting into the door in the first place?
Interesting. I laughed at the close cabal. So I think just like every other professional work, there are entry recommendations, there are middle management recommendations, there are management recommendations. I think it's important for any professional, regardless of what sector that you are in, to identify where you are per time. If you are a recent school leaver and you want to get into work, professional work, and you choose the development sector, most likely you would be aiming at entry level. Now, if you are already a seasoned professional, but then you want to make a switch, depending on the mix of your education or skills that you already have, when you are making that switch, you might target entry level or you might target middle management. Because the truth is, there's no use to jumping the gun, to jump into something that you are not, adequately ready for. So it's to identify whether you should be targeting entry level or middle management, or by then senior management. And of course, senior management is a whole different ball game that I won't get into. But let's stay on entry level and middle management, which is most likely for people who are just getting out of school, or maybe professionals who are trying to make a switch. For the development sector, to work in it, you have to have a mix of education, what I call educational priming, and non-educational priming, which is where experience and skill sets and all of that come in. Educational priming is first part of it. Now, for your education, because we have established that development work cuts across different sectors, it means that if you have a regular MBBS, if you have a bachelor in health science, bachelor in economics, bachelor in social politics, social sciences, bachelor in environmental, whatever simple bachelorhood permits my use of the language, you have, even if it's good old just studying international development in school, you are already you could have the ability or the stab at working in the development sector. Now, to further it in terms of education, there are then other layers of education that it might be important you have. But I must put out there that there are people who don't have a second layer of education, but they have been able to get into the development sector. Why? Because they went over to the priming of the non-educational part, which is where experience and skill set comes in. I'm coming to that, but still staying on the educational part. So first, your regular first degree is okay enough to get you in. But also there is also the need, if you want to increase your chances, to get MSCs. For the sector that I work in, which is health, the development sector for health, if you have an MSc in public health, global health, international health, some of those relevant MSc relevant courses with regards to healthcare, you might also have a further chance, or even a PhD. Now, in terms of other trainings, if you have a training in maybe monitoring and evaluation, data analytics, project management, regular global health or community health, those are further trainings that can help expand your priming to be within the development sector. So that is on the educational part. Now, on the non-educational part, which is where work experience and all of that is, particularly for people who want to make a switch, I would really hammer on this. It's important that you think about getting work experience because it is in doing work experience that you can improve some of the soft skills that you need to be in the development sector. I would have to say here that the development sector is largely driven by soft skills. It is not what your degree told you. It is not the biochemistry you read in school. It is not the DYDX. It is a whole lot of the soft skills. If you listen carefully to Dr. Victor talk about the cultural intelligence, the emotional intelligence, the technical, attributes, a whole lot of that are driven by soft skills. So it's important that if you want to make yourself relevant to work in the development sector, you have to come with soft skills that you can gain from maybe getting work experience. So the question then is, how do I get work experience that can prime me to be in the development sector? For some people, they are lucky to get a job like this. But for most people in the development sector, I think a whole lot of us got in by volunteering. And volunteering can come in different ways. Some of us might still be in school. What are you doing in school? For me, from my school days, I was heavily involved in development work. I think among the lucky few, I usually tell my friends that it was easy for me at an early age to know that this is what I want to do. Even though I'm coming from a clinical background, I always knew that I wouldn't spend my time in the clinic. So because of that, it was easy for me from a very early age to volunteer, to find myself in places that allow me to pick up some skills. So volunteer so that it's easy for you to come in or either switch. Another thing is then decide on how you utilize your time, your personal time, not within an organizational, structure, but even the personal time that you have. How do you apply what you know, your skills, or even what you don't know within your personal time? So in a nutshell, there is educational priming, and then there is the non-educational priming, which is a whole lot of discussions around work experience and skill set. I don't know if you will give me time later for me to delve more on the skill sets, but let me stop here.
Thank you very much, Oluchi. It has been quite enlightening as to the different aspects, both the academic and the experience aspect. I would like Dr. Victor to briefly, maybe in a minute, comment on this particular question. I'm saying that because he's worked across board, like all aspects when it comes to the development sector, whether it is in research, whether it's the business aspect, whether it's in leadership. So his experience has cut across board. So I want him to just share a bit of some light, maybe in 1 minute.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. You put me on the spot there. I don't know if you are calling me I don't know the word that you are calling me now, but yes, like you did mention, I've had the privilege of pivoting my career many times, and I've had my hands in multiple sectors. And I couldn't agree less with what Dr. Oluchi mentioned about being available to volunteer. I also started my development career, just training myself in. And I think mine was partly driven by the passion to just to make a difference. I remember when in the university, I was one of the people that started or that ran an anti-drug misuse and abuse program, just to bring awareness around the issue of drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and all of those things, And I even started a radio. I set up a radio on campus, So I mean, the idea really is that you must be willing to. You can volunteer wherever you are. You don't have to volunteer with an organization. You can volunteer your time to do something that is meaningful to communities. But just to expand on that a bit, I think there's also value in mentorship. You need to surround yourself with people that have gone ahead of you and seek mentorship. You also need to seek knowledge. Unfortunately, this is something that is grossly lacking in our generation. This generation, they just want to hit the ground running. They want to make money fast. They love big titles. They love the razzmatazz. They are very quick to post on Instagram or LinkedIn just to show the Davida local lifestyle and all of that. Sometimes you have to be patient. You have to go through the ropes. You have to go through the process. I know many of us might not like this, but there's something called process. There's something that process does to you. It refines it. It improves you, and going through the process also requires that you seek knowledge. So whether it is training, whether it is certification, whether it is mentorship, just seek knowledge. I can't remember how many trainings I've paid for in my life. I have done trainings in different areas. And so sometimes when I'm faced with situations where I need to respond with a certain technical skill, and you look around the room, nobody knows about it, and I'm just able to talk about it because I've done it before. I've done a course on some. There's almost no course I have not done anything on, and I've spent good money. I sometimes joke and I say that if they're looking for people that have actually invested properly in education, I am one of those people. I have never had a scholarship. I've never enjoyed the scholarship. Everything I've had, I've paid for it. So you need to invest in yourself. There's no other way around it, right? Then find people that are willing to take you under their wings and be willing to bring yourself under authority. I remember there was a time somebody reached out to me and said, "Oh, I want you to mentor. I want you to do this." By the time I gave them the person my calendar, and I said, "This is the structure," because you can't mentor with me without structure. No, you can't just call me up on phone and say, "Oh, my mentor, my mentor." No, if I'm your mentor, you have to come under my structure. And so when I shared my structure, the person ran away, because that person was not willing to come under the rudiment of mentorship and go through the process. So you must be willing to bring yourself under authority and go through that learning. You must be willing to invest in yourself, whether through short training, short courses, certifications. Interestingly, there are tons of trainings that are out there, but you need to know yourself first before you start training. I think that's even the first thing. Before we start with volunteering, discover yourself first. Because if you have not discovered yourself and you're gathering training, it's like you're trying to climb a wall. You have the ladder, but it's on the wrong wall. You'd have gone very far before you discover that your calling is not tech. Your calling is nursing. And that's what's happening to people that are jackparing these days. Anything that looks like a job, they say it's carer job. Everybody's doing carer. Even the ones that have no idea, that cannot even stand the requirements, then they get there and they get trapped. Or they say, no, it's tech. It's tech that is reigning now. Everybody's going to tech. Now it's AI. Everybody wants to do AI. So people are just jumping up and down without really understanding what they want. What do you stand for? Like it said, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. So discover yourself first. And sometimes you need someone to hold your hands and take you through that process of discovery before you now start volunteering, you start training, you start certification, you start mentoring, and all of that. Then finally, please, I know I've overused my 1 minute. Finally, don't always seek immediate gratification or rewards. You can go to an organization that you are interested in and say, I want to work with you. You don't have to pay me. That is like volunteering for free. Many organizations do not like that because they always want a sense of accountability. I personally don't like it. I always like to give some stipend, but it shows that you're a serious person, right? It shows that you're a serious person. So don't always be willing for immediate gratification. Be willing to apply yourself. And guess what? If you apply yourself and you learn, when the opportunities open, you'll be the first one to. I'd like to stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Victor.
Sorry, Sharon. I'm terribly sorry. I just needed to jump in on you because Dr. Victor touched something that hits me. It's the know yourself. I think in this development work, knowing yourself is a huge part of it. Because when you think about the risk, there are risks in it. People think that development work is about money. There are risks, there are things that you struggle with. So I have sustainability will the passion and you knowing your why. So it's something that I would really encourage everyone who's in the sector. You need the passion, you need the why. I thought I should add my voice to it because it's something that over, Sharon. I'm done speaking.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. In fact, isn't in the comment section said, if you are going nowhere, you get anywhere. Thank you, Dr. Victor. Okay. So as we are rounding up the discussion, if you have questions, I'm speaking to our guests now. If you have any question, please drop it in the chat box so that we could read it during the question and answer session. Or if you want to put up your hand when we get to the question and answer session, please do so. So prepare your questions for the question and answer session. I know Dr. Oluchi at this point made some quick comments about money. That's going to be my next question. And I mean, the bottom line during our survey, somebody's interest for getting into the development space was money, and it was in capital letters. So, Victor, this question is for you. Why are development professionals paid marginally higher wages than the average minimum wage? So we see people earning up to 10,000, 20,000 naira an hour as a development consultant, or we see them, getting good money. So why does that happen?
Well, you chose to ask the hardest question to me. But I think it's an interesting question. So the concept of money is very relative. Um, for me, I always say that money responds to value. So the question is, how much value are development professionals bringing when you consider what the opportunity cost, for what they do? Development professionals take like the biggest risk. When COVID happened, when there was lockdown, nobody was moving. Development professionals were the ones on the front line. The greatest mortality in terms of frontline workers happened with um, doctors, nurses, and development professionals. When you look at even the insurgency and all the issues that we've had around security, development professionals take the biggest hit. The news does not carry it, trust me, but there's a lot that is going on, So when you think about risk, when you think about the fact that your work requires you to sometimes stay very long hours, working late into the night, working across different time zones, sometimes you have little sleep. You really cannot quantify all of those things. So I think that the concept of pay is sort of directly proportional to the concept of the value, but is also directly or indirectly proportional to the concept of the structure of development space. So what do I mean by structure? Most development projects are terms, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, at most 5 years. If the project is very successful, it gets maybe another 2 to 3 years or 5 years. And so the cycle, the employment cycle for the development professional is usually like 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, and there's a new project. So there's a very high level of instability. So if you are looking for a career, you want, the way they call it civil service career, you start today and in the next 40 years, you retire and get pension. There's stability, there is a very high level of certainty, the risk is low, the disruptions are minimal, then the development space is not really what you're looking for. So to compensate for that instability, I think that is why the compensation is like that. Then thirdly, I think also who is paying, right? If you look at the development space, it's mostly funded by philanthropists, people that are sort of have earned a lot of money and they want to give it, to save people's lives. And so when you look at what is the price to get people's lives saved, it's not something that you want to be sure that you're ensuring quality. You want to be sure that you are driving access. You want to be sure that people are rightly motivated to do the right things. And because of the very high level of ethical standard, we want to minimize the issue of corruption. So all these checks and balances has to be balanced out by ensuring that people are properly motivated. So that's why you see that development professionals, I won't say they are highly paid. I would say that they are comparatively paid more than you will find in your conventional convention. I don't want to use civil service because it means that it's as if civil service is not paid. Some civil servants are paid well, but more than your average. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. Alicia, is there something you like to add? You look like you are well.
I agree. I agree.
Well, the benchmark generally will be the civil service, so I don't blame you for making reference to the civil service. So just as we try to round up, I have one final question for both our speakers. So you know that part of our discussion was identifying, or rather the topic for this webinar was identifying like pathways to having impact through international development. So I believe that the audience want to know what are the various pathways to discovering their paths to impact in using the spectrum of the international development space. So ladies first, I'll speak, Dr. Oluchi, I'll ask you to speak to that first, and then Dr. Victor. Please don't forget to leave your comments in the chat box, or we'll wait for you for the question and answer session. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for this last question. First, I would say is find your why. I think Dr. Victor extensively spoke about that, your intrinsic why. And please let it not be money. If we haven't established anything, we have established that people on the outside think development workers is about money. It's not about money. Find your intrinsic why. Make sure it's not just money. I mean, money helps us all, but make sure that your intrinsic why to come into development sector is not money. Find what motivates you. Second thing is, in this path, in this journey, you need to have a mindset that is open. I think Dr. Victor mentioned it, a growth mindset. Don't be too enclosed in how you approach issues or how you think about issues, because our world is huge and our world is diverse. And the things that plague our world, depending on how you look at it, has multifaceted considerations. So if you have a closed mindset, you cannot work in the development sector. I remember when I first started my job in Edo, the first work I did in the development sector, coming into public health, was working with female sex workers. For about 3 months, I couldn't tell my deeper life father that I was working with female sex workers, because there is nothing he's going to understand about it. Even for me, I had to struggle with going out to do work, talking with female sex workers. But my why helped me, re-engage in how I did the work. And the first way I looked at it was, number one, I want to make a difference. I want to improve people's lives. I want to make sure that people are not prone to risks. So while I am not in line with whatever is their value system, however, they are first humans, and we have to make sure that we are giving them information to even improve their life. I had to connect what I was doing back to my why. So having your why in this development space is very important, so that it then allows you to have that mindset that is open to approach issues. The other thing I would say is, within the development sector, know the issues, the challenges that exist in the world. Be a voracious reader, be a voracious learner. Learning is lifelong. Maybe one of the things I've not said is that Dr. Victor used to be my boss. I worked with him earlier on, and he's still my boss. One of the things I learned critically from Dr. Victor is a terminology they would always say: learn, unlearn, and relearn. It is, Dr. Victor would always say it every time. And that learning has followed me all through, even though we don't work closely together. A development professional constantly needs to be ready to learn, relearn, and even unlearn what it is you know before, and then learn again. So it's that cycle of voracious learning, voracious interest in knowledge that would help you to be armed with the information that you should use to create change. So familiarize yourself with issues, with challenges, with goals. There are some of us that you've been hearing SDG. You have never looked at what SDG is. You don't know what it is talking about. You've been hearing climate change. You've been hearing about poverty, gender inequality, but you don't know what it's about, and yet you want to work in the development sector. No, you won't be able to fit in. So it's important that you are able to be familiar with the issues, with knowledge and all of that. And finally, find your skill sets. Personally, for me, I have separated the skills that are required in the development sector into what I call, number one, everyday skills; number two, foundational skills; and number three, next level skills. Now, if I would give me a minute to just touch about that in how I understand it. As a person, your everyday skills are what I call your self-starter skills, your self-motivational skills, your time management skills, your emotional intelligence skills, your critical thinking skills, your multitasking skills, your communication skills, in the way you deliver information. Communication is very important. Those are things that you should be practicing every day to make you ready to be in the development field. Now, foundational skills are skills that then are peculiar to the development sector. Once again, you come in with communication, the technical skills, depending on the sector that you are working in, the interpersonal skills, the program management skills, the learning skills, the research skills, and the program planning skills. Those are things that you need to have every day. Practice them in line with your personal skills. Finally, in the next level skills, you need networking. Maybe that's why they think that the development sector is a cabal. It's not, but it's just that within this field, networking is one of the things that helps you to know what is happening, know where to go, and know how to apply yourself. So networking is important. Get yourself a mentor, get mentees as well. Get peers that have the same passion with you and see how you apply your passion. Think of leadership and management skills. And of course, think of your personal branding. If your main concern is to get rich, development work is not for you. There is satisfaction, but it's not for you. Having a good why and an approach to mindset change should be what should drive you to work in this field. I think I will rest my case. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Victor, briefly.
Okay. So what there is there to add to what Dr. Oluchi has said? I mean, she has just taken us to school. Thank you so much, Dr. Oluchi, for that. The only thing I would just like to add is there are many channels by which you can find expression. So the only way to do development is not just for you to get a job in development and be employed by an NGO and all of that. That's not the only part. So I say that there are three channels, what I call 3 E's in expanding your expression in development. So one is that there is the entrepreneurial path, right? Path, like road, entrepreneurial pathway. There is the employment pathway that you can also use. Then there is the education pathway. So let me start with the employment pathway. So the employment pathway is pretty much a generic pathway that we've all been talking about. Find an organization, volunteer, get a job, and do amazing work while working with the organization. So that is like the standard pathway. But there's also another pathway that you can also use, which is the entrepreneurship pathway. A lot of us are very entrepreneurial, but we don't understand how we can use our passion for entrepreneurship, to deliver social change or to improve lives or to help people. So that's also another thing that you can do. You need a lot of mentoring, you need a lot of capacity building to be able to do that, of course, combined with your passion. And like entrepreneurship is not easy. Nothing is easy anyway. But entrepreneurship is not easy. So when you're going to be doing entrepreneurship and you're going to use that entrepreneurship to improve people's lives, some people call it social entrepreneurship, some people call it impact entrepreneurship, but that is the pathway that you can actually use. This meeting is not sufficient to talk about impact entrepreneurship. It's something that is a whole field that some of my work also centers around, and I also teach. I have the privilege of teaching. Then the third part is the education part. So you can do this work, you can do development work, but do it through the academic pathway. So what do I mean by academic pathway? You can find an organization or institution to either advance to do a PhD and start teaching or go into the lecturing pathway. I've had many colleagues, switch from working with the organization and they decide to go to their PhD. While doing their PhD, the university decides, come in and become a lecturer. I've had many of my friends and colleagues even rise up to become profs and associate profs. My best friend is a prof somewhere, and rightfully so. I'm also very happy that I teach some courses with him on entrepreneurship, and he's doing very well. Another very good friend of mine is an associate prof in the US, and they all came from doing development. So you can actually pivot. You can move from entrepreneurship to employment to entrepreneurship to education, and all of that. So these are the 3 pathways. I've had the privilege of operating in these 3 pathways. Doing work, doing academics. Thankfully, I'm also a member of faculty for one of the world's foremost universities. Then, of course, the entrepreneurship pathways, like you heard during my opening profile, I'm a social entrepreneur, and I'm also a venture builder, as well as venture capitalist. I invest in impact entrepreneurship. So there are many ways you can find the expression. Don't limit yourself to it just has to be one. But what I know is that the employment pathway sort of prepares you for the other pathways. I've seen people, they do better when they move from learning the work, being on the field, understanding how it works, and decide to go to business or decide to go to academics. They always do better, than the other way. So these are just a few that I can share, but there's much more that if the opportunity allows, we are able to share with you. What is
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Victor. So this last session, this last question has kind of given us the summary of the whole concept of what we've tried to do during this webinar. So find your intrinsic why of joining the international development space, have an open growth mindset, acquire knowledge, cannot be underestimated, cannot be overemphasized. You learn, you unlearn, you relearn, find your skill sets. It is important that you identify the skill set that is relevant to the development space or to that particular development space you are interested in. Networking is a way to remedy to break into the development space. And finally find your expression. What you are good at, start with something, proceed to the next, and do not limit yourself. I think summarily, that is what the whole concept of this webinar has been about. So we have 10 minutes for our questions and answers. Please move to your mic after speaking, or when you want to speak, we can unmute you. And then when you're done speaking, you mute your mic so that it doesn't interfere. Raise your hand. As I said, drop comments in the comment section, and also make comments if you do not have the question. So we are leaving the floor open for the next 10 minutes or so. For the question and answer. So maybe about 5 minutes to between 3 and 5 minutes for questions, and then the remainder for answers from our speakers. So the floor is open. Send your questions to the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll let you ask your question. Have we been so extensive that nobody seems to ask the question?
As a matter of fact, I'm actually worried if we have some, enlightening them, because where there are no questions, maybe they are, just kidding, actually.
I feel differently, actually. I feel like if people understand very well, there's no need for question. But I think that there could be burning issues. Okay, Temisola says she has a question. Please go ahead, Temisola. You want to ask it in the chat box, or you want to speak up?
I think you can just speak to it.
Yeah, Temisola, please speak up.
Okay. Good afternoon from this end.
Good afternoon.
Yes, Temisola Emmanuel by name. Thanks for the insightful session so far. I would like to clarify something which was mentioned by Mr. Victor. He mentioned that as someone who is interested in development, making developmental impact, he identified that we do not need to be bureaucratic in the procedures to engage, because we are dealing with lives, and it's expected that we take steps as soon as possible so as to address issues at hand. But I would like to know, to what limit or to what boundary do you take, would I call it calculated risk, kind of, which possibly might be your own way of trying to address the issue at hand, whereas you might in a way not actually following a due process for it. So what's the boundary like? What's the guide, the limit to taking such decisions? I don't know if you get my question, sir.
Absolutely. Is that Temisola? I completely understand your question. If you remember, I said the development space does not really allow for unnecessary bureaucracy. Unnecessary bureaucracy, that's what. Every organization, every institution has bureaucracies, and you have to align within those bureaucracies. But the way development organizations are supposed to operate is that they are supposed to remove what we call bottlenecks for you to be able to respond quickly, especially when there is high risk. So that is just the way the development space is structured. So if you find yourself in an organization that is supposed to be a development focused organization and you find unnecessary bureaucracies, they might be experiencing some issues. They've been able to deliver impact as quickly as possible. Now, the issue of taking calculated risk, whatever risk you are taking, you must not break three rules. Number one is that you must not break the rule of protecting and preserving the lives of people, what we call the aristocratic oath. I'm not getting this right. For preservation of life, you must not put anybody's life or the integrity of anybody at risk. Number two is that you must not break any rule regarding organizational compliance. Hippocratic Oath, yes, thank you. You must not break any rule regarding compliance with laid down administrative procedures and programs. Number three is that you must be consistent with the policy of the land. That is, if the country has said this is the policy and it's been signed by law, you cannot, because of how enthusiastic you are, go above that. You can never be above the law, whether the law of the land, the law of the organization, or the law of preservation of human life. So I hope that you always remember this as you also want to break the rule. Does that answer your question? Was I talking to myself?
No, we heard you.
Okay, super. Yeah.
Okay, so Christy has raised her hand. Christy, please go ahead with your question.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for an engaging conversation. Yeah, I've enjoyed myself through the conversations. So I work with quite a number of young people, and what I see is young people coming with the hammer, let's come and hammer mentality in the development sector. And we know in the development sector that really would not play out. But with this mentality, it has become, from my experience, increasingly difficult to get the right people that can do the job. I'm not sure if that is your own experience, but it's very interesting to also hear from you. And now talking to people that really want to build a career in development, how can we, make young people have the mind right sets and make them really see development for what it should be?
This kind of
so do you have any specific person to answer, or it's open to both either of the speakers to speak to it?
It's interesting to hear from both perspectives.
All right.
Let me just add a little before Dr. Victor is the boss. He would add to that. And hi, Christy, it's good to see you. And I did see you. It's good to hear from you. It's interesting, the question you asked. And I think we hammered on it here, that it's not about the money. I think meetings like this give us the opportunity to change that mindset. Like every cause that someone wants to make a case for, maybe we as development professionals need to start intentionally making that case to say, this work is not about the money. this is what you need to do, this is what you need to know, and all of that. Maybe as we consistently advocate for this through meetings like this, through using our personal networks, through constant engagement with young people, or even volunteer to mentor. I think we don't talk about that a lot. We think that mentees should always go look for their mentors. We as people who have been able to be exposed to a certain level of information, understanding, and learning, I think we need to get to the point where we volunteer ourselves to be mentors to people, identify a young group, or a niche. I don't know how to put it. For me, one of the ways I apply myself is that I work with the teenage group in church. It was very intentional for me, because I think that at that young age, we need to start changing people's mindset, giving them information that maybe no one has told them and they are not aware of. I think in essence, what I'm saying is, platforms like this and us volunteering ourselves is our opportunity to drive home that mindset shift that development work is not about money, and of course with evidence. The second thing I would say is, in getting the young people, I worked with a consulting firm that they devoted themselves to what they call what was that thing called? Like a 3-month learning and capacity building session. So for them, they understand that young people want to hammer, they want money and all of that. So they created that learning environment where young people can come from nothing, just come. We are happy to pay you to come and learn. So they were paying them, but of course, not something so huge, but something relevant. And they were teaching them, priming them for development work. And at the end of 3 months, they cut off over half of the participants, maybe by checking the people who are very much interested in money and a whole lot of other criteria. But at the end of 3 months, they have primed a group of young people that are ready to work within the development field. I think what I'm saying in essence is, day by day, little by little, we can make in some small inputs that can allow us to have that crop of young people that we can find to work within the development space, and people who have understanding of what really the development space is about. Let me stop there and listen to Dr. Victor as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Oluchi. And I mean, it's really refreshing to hear about the amazing work you're doing with young people. So just to continue from where you stopped, I think that the importance of structured mentorship cannot be overemphasized. Organizations, especially development organizations, need to include as part of their principle, the nurturing the next generation. Unfortunately, many organizations will tell you, we don't even have the budget. Oh, our donors will not pay for it. This and that. I mean, they give all kinds of excuses. I've been there before, so I understand some of the internal bureaucracies we need to manage, to implement this kind of program. But the good thing is that new generation organizations, just like Olishi mentioned, the organization she said she worked with, it's implementing this kind of program. I also know that Social Capital, launched the consulting training program. I think about 2 years. Maybe Sharon can talk about that. They launched it, and I also mentor on that program, so I understand how the program operates. And theirs is even a 6-month paid program. It's like a paid internship. And at the end of the 6 months, if there's an opening, they can now take from that pool. So it's a win-win, because it gives the opportunity for people to build their capacity. It also gives the opportunity to get some of the good hands into the system, and sort of flatten that steep learning curve. So those are kind of programs that organizations can do. What I think we should also add to the mix is that we as professionals, especially as we advance in our career, let's make it easy for people to reach out to us. Let's make it easy for people to connect with us. So, for example, you go to LinkedIn, you find lots of people always reaching out to say, we want to mentor and all. And I mentioned that I have people approach me for mentorship. And because I have a personal mentorship program, I don't want to give out the name yet, because we are rebranding and we're going to sort of relaunch again in a couple of months. It's a milestone launch, so that's why I don't want to give out the name yet. But the idea is that we're creating a platform where we will have a collective of young people that that I want to, along with my friends and other people that are willing to join me, nurture and get them prepared for the world, for the next generation, for the society that is evolving. So we as individuals must be able to give ourselves. Professionals, established professionals should also be willing to volunteer their time as a way of giving back to society. So if I call on, who asked the question, Christy, if I call on Christy or I call on Oluchi and say, I want you to come and give me 5 hours or 1 hour every week to mentor the young people, you shouldn't say no. I mean, you're busy, but it's part of giving back. So I think we also have the impetus or the urgency to create that platform for the next generation people to thrive. Then, thirdly, we need to give the room for people to learn and grow. And learning and growing requires people to make mistakes. They will make mistakes, they will fall out of the line. How patient are we? Trust me, the development space is so fast-paced and so unforgiving that sometimes when you make mistakes, you're out of the door. There's no time. Like, we need to deliver. It's all about deliverable. It's all about results. It's all about data. But can we also create room for growth and allow people to make little mistakes and grow on their path? If they make a few mistakes and after all the coaching, they still don't pull their weight, then you can excuse them. But let's also create room for people to grow organically without just forcing them to be all about the result and the data. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I have a question from Chizoba. Chizoba says, I understand that the essence of development is to improve lives. How do you handle failed interventions and how do donors view this? So who do I address that question to? Okay, speak up to it.
Dr. Victor, please.
Yeah, so
I thought so, but I mean, I wanted to leave it open first.
So what does failure mean? I always ask this question. We always define success, but we never define failure. What does failure mean? We should have a definition for failure in our programs, right? What is the assumption that if we do certain things, that people will change? What is the assumption that our strategy, our model will work? What's the assumption that things will not disrupt things? Our entire approach. One example is COVID. Nobody ever thought that COVID would happen to us, but COVID happened and it disrupted everything. Whoever planned for COVID, did we have a COVID strategy in 2015 or 2019? Nobody did. So how do we deal with failure? I think it's been to be honest and to communicate it clearly and to be able to document what led to the failure so that it doesn't happen again. Is to also build robust relationship with your stakeholders, whether it's government or the donors themselves or even your team. We have had situations where a project completely fails and you have to fire the entire team. How do you communicate that as a leader? As an employee, what is the perception that you get when you get a letter or you are told by your supervisor that this project has to be closed because it didn't meet up to its expectation? So that is where communication comes in, and let people really understand that, there are two expectations anytime you're implementing a project, not just project, even in our personal life. It's either you fail or you succeed. But for me, I say either you fail or you learn. For me, there's nothing like failure, right? So replace failure with learning. It's either you fail or you learn. So you learn how not to do something the way you did it before. So you must build that into your strategy from the very beginning and must be willing to communicate it clearly in the most transparent manner with empathy.
Thank you, Dr. Victor. I think that was very, I think that was very enlightening. Okay, so because of our time, we'll have one more question from Priye. Priye says, how can one successfully transition from the private sector to the development sector? Most times, a lot of entry-level roles tend to ask for 2 to 3 years experience in the development field. So how can one navigate this? Victor, I think I want to ask you that question.
Okay, so pivoting from the private sector to the development sector, um, it's not really a big deal. I think the first thing is to work on the mindset and the expectation. Why do you want to pivot? You know, people pivot for the wrong reasons. You know, sometimes they say, "Oh, I want to travel." I've had people tell me that the only reason why they want to come to development is that they like to travel. You know, that their work does not give them room to travel. You know, some people come and say, "Oh, they want free training." You know, so there are many reasons why people pivot. So understand what your reason is, then also understand what the requirement is. I have seen that there is a huge difference in the culture within the private sector and development. As much as the development sector can be fast-paced, can be grueling sometimes, I think that the private sector can be very brutal. There are many things that development will forgive you for, but the private sector, I mean, you make one mistake, you are gone because it's affecting the bottom line, which is profit. I've also seen that there's a different way by which you communicate. In development, you want to say something, you say it in 2 pages. In the private sector, you say it in one paragraph. So if you come to development and you are using private sector style, and I'm saying, what is the situation of the country today? And you say the country is cloudy and cold. I'll be looking at you. You've not started. You are just telling me that you want to talk. But the private sector, they like it short, simple, straight to the point. But development, we want you to explain. We don't want any ambiguity. We want all the details. So you have to sort of prepare your mind for what the expectation is. Then sometimes in private sector, you are required to work odd hours. Sometimes in development, you are required to work odd hours. So there are similarities and differences. The bottom line is that why do you want to pivot? That is the first question. And I think there are also programs that can help you, you know, if that is what you are thinking about. Perhaps Sharon can talk about that.
Okay, so
Interestingly, Dr. Victor,
yeah.
interestingly, Dr.
Yeah.
Victor, that was one of the things we both heavily dwelt on, and like you just captured it, pivoting, understanding the intersection, the similarities, the differences,
Yeah.
and the pivoting can happen. But also, most importantly, finding the peculiar technical skills that are required in that industry. To share an experience, I came from heavy NGO implementation experience and I pivoted to consulting. Now, one might say it is still healthcare, it's still the same, but I would not lie, I struggled a bit at some point. What saved me was my why. My why first is that I know I had to make a change. I know I had to deliver what I have to do. I knew I was passionate, so I stayed true to my why. But I took steps back and I had to ask myself, what are the critical skill sets to have in consulting? I need to find it and learn it. And you can't come with the notion of, I know it all. After all, I've been working for 5 years or 10 years. You have to come like a baby. You have to ask the questions. If you are pivoting, even if you have done 13 years elsewhere and you're coming to an industry, you have to be ready to come down. It takes us back to the learning, unlearning, relearning, and find the technical skills. I remember that for consulting, one of the things I had to learn was log frameworks and all the way to do problem solving patterns and all of that. I didn't need that before in NGO. But here's the thing, I have learned that now, and it's even still valid for me with the NGO field. So like Dr. Victor said, there are the differences, the intersection, the similarities, but most importantly, hold on to your why and find the critical skills that you need for that sector you're pivoting to and grab it.
Thank you very much. Very, very insightful. And in addition, pre networking, Dr. Oluchi mentioned that before, because he said he needs 2-3 years experience. Networking will get you anywhere. If we do not have any more comments on the whole webinar, I think we'll be calling it a day. Just before we do that, kindly fill in the attendance Could you share the link on the chat box? Okay, I think it's been shared. Thank you very much. We've shared the attendance sheet on the chats for you to fill it in when you are registering. So just kindly do that in a minute or two. From the speakers, thank you very much. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to work with us, to speak on our program. And we trust that you will come back if we invite you where the need arises. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have a brief word for us.
I don't have much. I'm actually the person who is honored to have done this. So thank you for the opportunity. I think for me, it's more satisfying just sharing a room with my boss. It's not every day that someone has that privilege. So Dr. Victor, it's such a privilege to have shared this space with you. I'm a good student, you know. I learned a lot from you.
Tell me about it. You rubbed off on me in very many ways that I can't forget in a hurry too. Thank you so much. And I really like the opportunity to be part of this panel. And I look forward to future engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and do have a great day. Thank you for joining us. All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.